All of the men in Why Did I Get Married, they were all just truly evil people. Like, I have never seen such toxic masculinity displayed on my screen before until I watched Why Did I Get Married. All of the men in Why Did I Get Married, they were all just truly evil people. Like, I have never seen such toxic masculinity displayed on my screen before until I watched Why Did I Get Married. And thank God I am black and I was raised by BET so I can watch this movie at an early age. So as I grow up, I knew what type of men to avoid. Like, I can't watch this movie without getting an ick from literally all of them. So we all know that Mike is the villain of this movie. He is an emotional abuser. He is a cheater. He's fatphobic. Just the worst possible human being. But there were also other villains in this movie. We have Sheila's friend, and guys, no matter how many times I watch this movie, I cannot remember her name. So we're just going to call her what Angela called her, a trick. You are just low, down, and dirty for doing this to Sheila, who you called your friend. And Gavin, how dare you go to your friends calling your wife stupid for not buckling in your son, and you're just keeping that resentment inside of you? You keep talking about communication, but yet you fail to communicate with this with your wife. Oh, and Marcus, acting all big and bad, dressed like an African uncle. You are a cheater. You put your hands on a woman, and you let your baby mama, who you slept with, by the way, disrespect your wife time and time again. And I'm gonna do a whole separate video on Tyler Perry's character. God, I forgot his fucking name. But his specific marriage deserves an entire video on its own. And I'm going to talk about the girls for a little bit because Angela was the only real friend. Because she knew that Mike was cheating on Sheila and she was like, oh, I'm gonna tell Sheila. But then all the other girls were like, no, don't tell her. Maybe sometimes a girl doesn't want to know when her man is cheating on her. What the fuck are y'all talking about? Troy was the only real man in this movie. I had to do a separate video on Terry and Diane alone because every single marriage within this movie had its issues. But for some reason, this marriage pissed me off the most because to me, throughout this entire movie, I just think that Terry just wanted to marry a housewife. Diane, his wife, is trying to make partner and she's like doing this big case to get a 16-year-old out of jail. But Terry really wants to go on this retreat. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll go on this retreat. And Terry keeps complaining that his wife is just working too much and that she should focus on this marriage, on this retreat. I'm over here like, you don't want your wife working on this big case, but you have time to order up some medication for Marcus. And he is constantly pressuring her to get pregnant. And when they were arguing inside their house, she was like, you don't have to carry a baby. I do. And all Terry was hearing was blah, 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 blah. You don't love me, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you cheat on me. He took his daughter to get a DNA test because he thought that she wasn't his. Because his wife has a job. And I'm over here like, Terry, did you think that being a lawyer is working a 9 to 5? That once they clock out, their job is done? You are a whole doctor. You know them hours be crazy. And I do want to get on Diane for getting her tubes tied without telling her husband. Because even if you did not want any kids, you should not go behind somebody's back and do that. Especially if you guys are married. I feel like that was a conversation that needed to be had. But at the same time, she was giving out clues that she did not want any more kids. And when Diane was apologizing to Terry for some reason, he had the audacity to look her in the eye and say that, oh, me and my coworker are having a baby together. Ooh, I hate him so much.
I feel like even the women are so problematic. And I'm going to start with Sheila, number one. Sheila did not do any internal work on herself before she married her second husband. She was still hung up on her ex-husband, therefore inconveniencing her her marriage with her current husband. Second, she did not want to start all over again. She wanted to include her current husband, into this friendship of whatever going on. Left their life in Canada for nothing really, to go back and forth with this friendship that she want to go. She did not want to blossom outside of this circle of friends. She wanted to show that she's doing well. She wanted to show that, I'm fine, She really, 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 really did not want to move on with her life for some reason. And it reflected back. How do we know this? We know that she kept on helping her ex when it was not necessary. This person could have gotten a nurse. It was not her duty to help his ex, by the way. she kept on asking him for assistance. They had a whole life in Canada, but that was not enough for her because she kept on holding back to the past. She was not ready for marriage. That's not number one. The guy was fine, but she married a woman who was not ready, who was not, even though she says she was, but this is one of those things where you can say good things arrive to you and you can decline it and say, you know what, I need to work on myself and better myself because, I'm not ready. That's the issue I have with the Sheila case. Number two, um, Gina's character, her perfection bored me. This social worker persona that she had, that people must fix their issues and they have not everything needs to be fixed by kissing, my dear. Things, once we stop kissing, the problem will still be there. For me, I felt like she was a character who was so involved in other people's business instead of hers. If she invested so much energy in her life, in her character, we wouldn't have seen her spiraling so much, but we did. How did we see her spiraling so much? Because our marriage was falling apart. It wasn't perfect. And we started to know that she was human when she allowed herself to feel, by breaking stuff, by shouting, by going through a divorce, by being the opposite of who she is, of who she pretended not to be, rather. Three, like I agree with the other woman. I don't know. Am I confusing the name Sheila or something? Am I confusing them? I hope not. I don't know the characters, but I know them. You know, but the okay, the loud one. The loud one. I feel like she's the most authentic one. Okay, for me, I would feel like that. Let me think a second. Sheila was that friend who would be open to advising and sharing, and not like this thing of talking behind each other's back. She put things down on the table and be like, this is going on. Like, let's stop talking about each other while we are friends, about each other, towards like the reviewer said, like, I feel like, to me, she was the honest character there, out of all, even. And I feel like the man from Canada, that her husband, the second husband, yeah, I agree. I feel like those two characters were the ones who were actually on point for me, and the rest were just like villains, more than in more ways than another. They have different categories of villain. Yeah, they had different kinds of villains. I can put them in different, from west to semi what level. But it was really interesting to watch this Tyler Perry. But all his movies are problematic, and there's something we need to take. And I really don't watch his movies anymore because I've learned that his movies are problematic and they depict black people in a certain way that I do not like. And I've never really found a movie, except in the end, where Tyler Perry showcased black people in the most positive light, except in the end, like I would say. But in order to get, it's like a saying, in order to get to that beautiful thing, you need to suffer. And I don't agree with that ideology. Why does it work for black people specifically? Why doesn't it work for everybody else, but it works specifically for black people, that we need to suffer to get the good things first? I don't want to suffer to get to that good life. I just want to exist as a black woman. I don't want to suffer to get that Lamborghini, to get the BMW, to live in that beautiful. I don't want to suffer first. I don't want to get to the end. What if the end I die? What if? You know what I'm saying? So, for the most part, yeah, I agree with what she's saying. Yeah, I agree with her, actually. What do you guys think?